Wow, it's been a wonderful day, hasn't it? And I'm so pleased to be your last speaker. I'm here, as you know, to talk to you about water. And water is something that I talk about on a regular basis. Is this better? Yes, okay. In fact, I was speaking about water a few weeks ago in Martha's Vineyard with National Geographic. And chatting with someone, he said something that I will never forget. He said, water is the ink with which the poetry of life is written. And that means so many things. It can mean that water is the substance which supports the web of life in our world. It can also mean that water is the symbol of our hopes and dreams for the afterlife. But for me, water means something very personal. Water, in so many ways, defines my life. In fact, it started when I was about 4 months old, and my parents taught me to swim for the first time. Shortly thereafter, we went on expedition, and as you can imagine, water was not in short supply on a Cousteau expedition. But my real love affair with water started when I was 7 years old. And it was a summer that we spent a lot of time in Monaco, and one of the hats that my grandfather wore was as the director of the Oceanographic Museum of Monaco. And that summer, I would go visit him at the museum. I was 7. And we would go feed the fish in the aquarium. And we had this wonderful game that we would play together, where he was the king of this underwater world. And being 7, I opted to be the mermaid princess. And we went hand in hand through this aquarium and up to each tank. And he showed me the electric eels. He showed me the corals. He showed me the sponges, the hermit crabs, the clownfish, the sharks. And at each tank, he explained to me the importance of these creatures and how they fit into a larger web of life and how we, as stewards of this kingdom, needed to take care of them, needed to understand them, love them, and protect them. It was also the summer that he taught me to scuba dive. And I remember I walked up to the side of the boat, and I stood at the edge, and I had fins that were a little bit too big, and my tanks were a little bit too heavy. And I was really nervous about how I was going to breathe in this underwater world. Would the regulator work? Would I be able to breathe underwater and not drown? And I stood there looking down, and I took one tentative last glance up at my grandfather, and he winked at me and gave me a little nudge. And so I took a giant leap of faith into the Mediterranean, and I could breathe. And I started to look down, and I saw this huge ball of shiny silver fish. And they were mesmerizing. They danced through the water in complete synchronicity, and they were unbelievably beautiful. I still think sardines are beautiful because of the impact and the impression that they made on me when I was a little girl. And that was the beginning of a love affair that I've had with water my whole life. It was also the year, it was in the early 80s, and it was a time when my grandfather was at the peak of his popularity. And he was one of the most beloved and recognized faces in the world. And in France, people really wanted him to run for president. And they signed petitions, hundreds of thousands of people clamored for him to lead the country. And he could have won, but he said no, because he wanted to dedicate himself to issues beyond politics, which is the theme of our event today. And in so many ways an interesting concept, because politics is the process by which we make decisions as a group. And so what is beyond politics? I believe that to go beyond politics, we must reimagine our world. We must reimagine not only our relationships with each other, but our relationship to the natural world. And I believe that we need to start with water. Over the past decade, I have spent so much of my time out in the field, exploring different ecosystems, but also spending a lot of time with people. I've spent time with spiritual leaders and heads of state, farmers and fishermen, scientists, water managers, policy writers. I've spent time with Saudi royals, and I've spent time with people who live in the slums of Delhi, talking to them about water, about what water means to them and how it shapes their lives, how it offers them hope and a way in the future. And across all of these continents, and in these conversations with all of these people, I've cried with them, I've laughed with them, I've worried with them, I've rolled up my sleeves with them. The one thing that they all say, that it is exactly the same, is that water is life. For all of them, water is life, and it is for us too. We often forget that in the United States, in our lives here. Water is something that flows from the faucet to the drain, and it flows from there out of our consciousness. But by the twilight of my life in 2050, 75% of the world will experience water shortages. And this requires us to reimagine our world. It requires us to think differently about what it means to be an environmentalist. It requires us to make decisions with a different view, a different perspective, a different idea of what is possible. So many times I talk with people and I ask them, as they discuss their concerns about their immediate environment, I say, well, would you consider yourself an environmentalist? Oh, no, they say. I'm not an environmentalist, but I'm actually kind of worried about the environment. And I thought about that a lot, because if people are concerned about the environment, but they don't define themselves as environmentalists, then we have a problem. Because we are all environmentalists. We all have concerns about the quality of our air, the quality of our water, the quality of our food, the quality of our lives. And water flows through all of that. It shapes our cultures and our civilizations. It leads us towards the future if we can find a way to protect the quality and quantity of this substance that is so universal and upon which all of our lives depend. Protecting our water requires us to reimagine our world and how we use this incredibly precious substance to make sure that the cultural, emotional, and natural richness of the world that our children will inhabit remains intact. This is the space race of our generation. It is the challenge that faces each and every one of us. I say this because there is no other way for me to describe to you what I've seen, describe to you what I've felt. I say this because it is the most important thing that we can put our thoughts and energies to. Redefining what it means to be a part of this world, redefining what it means to be the architects of our future. And I think that starting with letting go of the idea that the environment is a special interest is the place to start. That it's not about saving the whales, it's not about saving the dolphins, it's not about saving the corals or the trees, it's not saving our rivers or our marshlands. It's about saving the quality of our life and starting in our communities, starting with the issues that we face at home. we will be able to build this future upon which our children's lives will benefit. I'm so excited to be here today. I have been incredibly inspired by the speakers that came before me, and each and every one of them have challenged us to reimagine our world in a different way. I hope that as you leave here today and you think about everything that's been discussed, you will find inspiration and innovation and the stories all around you to protect our water planet and to be part of the change that needs to happen. Thank you.